Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Welcome to this new series of discussions with converts to Islam. I'm really excited about this because I just get to talk to some of my new friends here. I'm going to get you guys to introduce yourselves. So, Mirko, just a few words about yourself, mention that you're calling in from Iceland and all that kind of stuff. Just a few words, and then Amir after that.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Mirko, and I'm originally from Sicily in Italy, but I live in Iceland. And I have been a Muslim already for 3 years and a half. Amir, go. Maybe 2 words. Come on.
Right.
You said few words.
Okay. My name is Amir. I am an Italian Egyptian coming from Milan. I live in Denmark, and I became an Ahmadi Muslim 2 years ago. And I grew up in a Sunni Muslim family, but then the story is longer, so I think it's enough.
Okay, so what do the viewers need to know? This is really just about helping people, especially in this amazing journey. If you become a Muslim, you're totally changing your life for the better, inshallah, God willing. And it's really exciting. And we're making this a live question answer so that if you have anything to say, even if you don't feel like it's quite the topic, and you're struggling in your own way, or just want to share something, because sometimes you might be by yourself in your country, because there aren't that many converts to Islam at this moment in time, right? Just share, just talk to us. We'll be just happy, excited to talk to you. By the way, I should have mentioned, I'm not a convert to Islam. I just love this whole thing, and we're all my only part in this whole thing is that we're all on a journey in Islam. Like, nobody is nowhere near perfect. So the converts or reverts, as a lot of people like to say, are on a journey. I'm on a journey. We're all on a journey. Nobody's special or anything like that. And Mirko, person in the middle, let's put it that way, suggested a really good idea to begin. There you go. You could do it, Amir, as well.
Yeah, it's like putting the blame on me. I mean, it's not.
He said, no, it's a really good idea. Start by talking about what are the first steps. Like, if you convert to Islam, what should we be doing first? Like, and I'm just really learning and listening. So let's start with you, Mirko. What do you think are some things that, from your experience, are a good way to, start after you became a Muslim?
Well, I would say perhaps, things that one shouldn't do, when one converts to Islam, because it's a very delicate point, because you choose a totally different lifestyle, which means that you have to adjust your life to that kind of system of values. So this is something that takes a lot of time, and it takes different steps. It cannot be done all at once, but there is probably the idea, okay, now I've converted to Islam, then I have to change completely my lifestyle, like, just radically, right? And perhaps some people might kind of overwhelm themselves by doing that, by trying to make their standard already quite high. And this can be problematic because Islam is a middle way, right? So if you start applying, really, like, trying to reach a high standard from the very beginning, Islam can become a burden, and this is not what it has to be, right? Because things have to be made easy, so also the various practices. I mean, there is also a time for this, a time for this, and a time for this practice as well. Like during Ramadan, for example. Now Ramadan is done. I don't know how it was for you. For us here in Iceland, I mean, for the moment, like, sunset time comes very, very late. But at a certain point, you fasting for 21 hours, 22 hours, it's kind of like difficult. So in that sense, one doesn't have to be extreme in having like 22 hours, because it can be dangerous also. So, for example, for our community here in Iceland, we set at a certain point just 18 hours. That's it. so that it doesn't become extreme. So this is also, you know, the idea. One doesn't have to overburden oneself with practices, and this is something that can happen, you know, in it can occur in the mind of a convert. Okay, I have to set already this standard. It's difficult to do it in the beginning.
It's easy to push yourself too much, isn't it? And I would even describe it. I mean, first of all, like I like to say that this is an Islamic idea that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that do things regularly, even if they're small. You know, it's about the regularity rather than going to the extreme and then giving up. So this is another way of saying this idea of balance. Okay, what do you think, Amir, about this idea? I mean, like this idea that America said that you shouldn't go too extreme. I'm always doing that myself. Like, everybody, I think, not everybody, but I do that myself, even though I'm not a convert. What about yourself? What's your experience?
I thank you for that. I fully agree with you. I would like to start by saying, Mirko, that I thought about you at least a couple of times, because during Ramadan, I had people asking me, so what if you live in Iceland? What are you going to do? I mean, there's like, time is just crazy. Sunset can happen at 10 or 11 in the evening, and or some places in Norway, you don't even see like the line that distinguishes the day from the night. So obviously there is wisdom in that. Islam is also about wisdom, and there has to be a certain limit, and for everything there's a specific purpose, and there's also a limit in. So even for Ramadan, as Mirko mentioned, there are exceptions in which you are allowed not to fast. It's obligatory for people who are able to do that, but not for women who are pregnant or people on a journey and so on. And there is always a way to compensate what you have missed in that sense. So I fully agree with that. And Islam is about balance, so it's obviously about finding a balance in your life, and also about regularity. So compared to other religions, Islam is a very practical religion, and that leads us to maintain a practicality on our daily lives. That if we maintain that, we don't need to go to the extra mile. It's just a constant. It becomes like it shouldn't be a habit, but it becomes like a constant routine that we do in order to maintain our spiritual level. And then, if I can quote the promised Messiah, alayhi salam, in this, we know there are different levels of spirituality and non-spirituality as well. And there is a moment where we are fluctuating between a level and another, and there is a moment when we reach the peak, when we get to a high standard of our spirituality. But that it's not something constant, as you mentioned before. We're constantly on a journey, and therefore it's important to maintain this stability on our journey. There may be some times where we are on a higher level, and some other times when we are on a lower level, but it's important to maintain this balance and routines, such as doing your 5 daily prayers, reading the Quran, reciting the Holy Quran, and then other aspect that I'm pretty sure we're going to address in the next few minutes.
The other aspect is YouTube. So Moriko talked about this idea of pushing yourself too much, and that's so easy. We like to push ourselves, and it's even a sort of I don't like to say Western too much. I think I say that too much in my videos, like blaming Western ideas. But there is this kind of like, I want quick fix now. I want it now, you know? I want to be spiritual now. I want 100%. So maybe there's a bit of that. And so it's very easy to be drawn into that. So that's Mirko's very important idea. Don't push yourself too quick. It's a marathon, not a sprint sort of thing. Yeah. And so, Amir, you shared about your experience regarding that. But now I want Amir... like, what is your tip, like, for new converts, like something you wish somebody told you?
Well, it's certainly important not to push too much yourself, as often when you embrace in your religion, you are excited. You're very excited about that, and it's very easy to go extreme and to fully go in depth with that. I certainly agree with that, and I think that it should be taken at little steps. That's for sure. I think I did that myself. I think I had a moment where I was fully engaged, like 100% into that. But probably because I was too excited and very curious as well. Because I, like in my whole experience, for example, I've never came into Ahmadiyya or to know about it until 3 years ago. So the moment I got to know about that, I've been really curious, so I started to really read a lot of books. I think what's important in our case in the Jamaat, if new people want to join the Jamaat and take bayat, it's also important that there is a program structured for the new converts. As Hazur recently, not so recently, but he said
Oh,
that.
by the way, we're gonna make it really easy for everybody to understand. So you have to avoid if you're gonna say Jamaat, you have to explain that word.
All right.
And
Okay. So
Hazur, all this kind
I
of
got it.
stuff.
Yeah. You're right. Okay. So by saying Jamaat, I mean our community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and by saying Hazur, I mean our spiritual guide, our spiritual leader. So the head of the community. He said not so far ago. He in one of his meetings with the communities online, he mentioned that it's important to have a program for the new converts, sort of to give them a guidance of what are the first steps, what someone should follow at the beginning, sort of not to like dive too deep into stuff that maybe you're not fully aware of, or that you cannot really understand. And the same is with the Quran. I mean, when you read the Quran the first time is not like when you read it the third time. Your level of understanding and comprehensions and your level of awareness just increases time after time, and with the experience as well. So I guess it's that's important.
So I'm very intrigued. What did Hazur, our spiritual teacher, say? Because he gives so much advice that you might hear something that I didn't hear.
Yeah.
And I'm always, if Hazur, our spiritual, the Khalifa, says something, I'm very intrigued. So tell me one or two things he said about this topic, about what should converts do when they first convert? What should they learn first or do first?
Well, it's obviously it's important to understand the concept of the bayat and the 10 conditions. The bayat is the pledge of allegiance, and it's important to understand these 10 obligations or 10 requirements that someone has to abide to when adhering to the Jamaat, to the community. That's one of the things that I would give as a tip. And then secondly, it's important to try to maintain your regularity with prayers and reading the Holy Quran and the books as well of the promised Messiah or the previous successors or the previous leaders, the Khulafa. Further on, I would add, yeah, I guess for now.
I mean, that's a very good start.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
In fact, that probably needs its own translation. So who's the promised Messiah? If we're just, average Muslim, or you just converted to Islam. So we could give a quick. Does anybody have a bit of fun trying to explain? What did you say? You said promised Messiah.
Yes,
and
I
you
did.
said the bayat, which is the 10 conditions. So these are kind of, let's call it bonus points.
Yeah.
If you want to learn about these things. Should we share it out? Let's have some fun. Who wants to take promised Messiah? Does anybody want to spend 1 minute on promised Messiah explaining that? Who's going to go for it?
I should be blamed for that, as I mentioned.
Okay,
So yeah,
and
it's
then
my fault.
Mirko can do the what's this 10 conditions? What's that all about? Go for it.
All right. So the promised Messiah is the reformer who has been prophesied that should come on the earth at the end of times to reform. Again, I'm repeating myself. The people in general and the Muslim in particular. And it's not a reformer just for Muslims. It's also a reformer for all the other people, as we find prophecies about him also in the Holy Bible and other scriptures in Buddhism and Hinduism. They spoke about a reformer coming in the latter days as well. many prophecies have been fulfilled in that, like in acceptance of his message and his claim. And so he established in 1889. He established the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in a remote village of India, which is the name of it is Kalyan. And so he established the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, which we are part of by the blessings of God. And after his demise, the prophecy of the successors of the Khulafa, the Khalifa, has been also established as well. And this I'll also quote a verse of the Holy Quran where Allah says that those who do good deeds and are righteous, they will be successors on the earth. They will have this granted. So currently, the state of affairs of the Muslims in general, because we don't want to like judge anyone, it's quite trembling. But so that's one of the main reasons of the came of the promised Messiah is to reunify the Muslims and to rectify the message that has been somehow a bit misunderstood and maybe also mixed with other things such as politics and other subjects as well. I guess more than a minute.
What a fantastic summary of such a difficult topic.
I did my best, I think.
Okay, America, your turn. Have a go at 10
if
conditions.
You feel like, Mirko, if you feel like.
If you feel like. If it's not too much pressure.
No, there is just one technical thing. There is kind of disturbance at a certain point with the sound.
Yes.
As soon as we start talking to each other, there is something going on. I don't know whether
there is, yeah. Testing 1, 2, 3. I thought it was when I was talking. Okay, next time what usually helps is kind of earphones or something, because then it stops sound going around. It could be that, but right now it's okay, alhamdulillah. Maybe when I was talking loudly it was happening. Oh, one thing you could do, but it might be tricky, is everybody try to now I've got earphones, so it can't be sound coming away. It might be something else that I'm doing wrong, but if you reduce your volume a little bit, it might help. But right now I can't hear it. Can you hear it, Mirko, right now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think when I was too close to here, I think it was. So I'll keep away from my microphone, maybe. Okay. Anyway, Mirko, have a go at this thing. This 10 conditions. What's this all about?
These famous 10 conditions. So basically, what Amir was talking about. So he talked about pledge of allegiance, right? Because we pledge our allegiance to, in this case, the Caliph, who is the successor of the promised Messiah, as we said. So basically, when we join the community, but actually we renew this pledge of allegiance every time, we have the so-called Jalsa Salana, which is, the
you have to explain that.
convention.
No!
Okay, let's say it already.
Okay, just do the 10 conditions.
Let's say it already. Yeah. So basically, we renew this pledge of allegiance, and the conditions, these famous 10 conditions, are basically, they reflect, what Islam is, like believing in only one God and believing that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is his messenger, and also believing that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian is the promised Messiah and Mahdi that was supposed to come. And also in relation to practices, so like this commitment to pray the 5 daily prayers, and, also taking care of humanity, serving humanity. These are all things that are part of these 10 conditions. So they simply reflect what Islam is. That's basically like that. And with this pledge of allegiance, you understand that there's a commitment, basically, to follow these conditions in your everyday life, right? Yeah. There are so many people actually, even outside Islam, and when they read, these 10 conditions, they say, yeah, if people followed all these conditions, there will be peace everywhere. Right? I don't know if it happened to you as well, but people I talked to about these 10 conditions, they said this. So there is nothing weird or strange or secret about that. I mean, they basically reflect what Islam is.
And as you mentioned, Mirko, they are like they represent what Islam is. And I mean, if for those who maybe are not aware of that, Islam in Arabic means peace, and Islam is a religion of peace. So, of course, abiding by these conditions, they are all conditions to uh, bring peace in the world. I mean, our holy Hazur, our holy spiritual guide, always emphasized what are the conditions to establish peace in the world. So, and he always emphasized the attributes of Islam in that. So.
Okay, so let's get back on.
Yeah, you hear it
Okay,
now, the
that's it.
disturbance.
Yeah, I'll stay back.
I don't. Is it me? Maybe I don't hear any disturbance.
No. The voice is Khalid's voice, definitely, which
All right.
overlaps basically at a
Then
certain
it was
point.
repeating, yeah. So it could be like feedback. So what we'll do, we're all learning, by the way, on this show. So we'll just do earphones next time. That's one of the many things that professionals do. Anyway, so yeah, I was thinking, what would be another thing? Rather than me thinking of another one, Mirko, can you think of another thing that new converts, should know something that could help them?
For example, one thing would be, in relation to people around, like your dear ones, like when you convert, of course, there might be an issue with people around you, especially because that's normal. We all have influence on other people. So when we change something in our life, it affects other people as well. And their reaction may affect us as well. So especially like in relation to family, in the case of converts specifically, because your family might not be Muslim. So like you convert to Islam and then there is, you're afraid there is this kind of clash, and sometimes it can happen. My experience was that, my parents were kind of scared, concerned when they got to know that I had converted to Islam. To the point that they were thinking, that the imam of our community was actually trying to send me to Syria and join ISIS. And, that was
I had the same
a beautiful
experience.
movie. I was like, what? Wait a minute.
Although I come from a Muslim family, I had the same experience. So
you heard what Amir said. You heard that.
Yeah, crazy. That shows how well the media is doing its job, giving the wrong impression. Yeah.
And of course, especially if people do not have the tools to, to understand and see from other perspectives, of course, it would be very difficult. I mean, if people watch.
So how do you deal with that sort of thing? Because this is for helping other people who are watching.
Mm-hmm.
How did you learn? Like, you might have made a mistake, and then about how you expressed it, and maybe how you could do it better. Express it to your parents. What would you advise?
You see, already telling them for me was a big question mark. How am I going to tell them? Because there was a certain point, I have to tell them, especially because, okay, I live in Iceland, but generally I come back to visit them. Well, not now because of COVID, but when I was supposed to come back after my conversion, 3 months before coming back, I let them know. But the best way, because I mean, that depends on the personality of your parents. In my case, the best option was writing to them, because, it is difficult for them to listen to reason sometimes, because, some people might come up already with a judgment from the start, and they have difficulties listening. So I had to find a way so that they could understand. So I wrote them, and at the same time, I tried to give them some time so that they could understand and melt it a little bit. And then when when we met for the first time, they saw that everything was fine. But one thing, actually, that this was an advice from the imam of our community here in Iceland. He told me, like, for example, now you're coming back to Sicily. I was at the time, and he told me, okay, you have to perform your daily prayers. For the first days, please combine them so that they see like 3 times only instead of 5 already. See what the point is, even there, you know, so that they get kind of used to seeing you, you know, praying, and it becomes fine, because already seeing you praying like 5, even if you normally pray the 5 daily prayers, it would be kind of a shock for them already if you pray all of them, like, okay, on time, all of them, all 5. So he told me combine them, so that
because religion in Europe is it's just mostly an idea that you sometimes practice, but to do it 5 times a day, it's like, oh my gosh, you're taking your religion that seriously. For Muslims, that's normal, but for Europeans or in the West, religion is kind of a thing you do at Christmas or something.
Even if I imagine, for example, I mean, for like, you know, in Christianity, for example, because I was raised as a Catholic, you know, people, I mean, there is the secular part of the Catholic community and the religious part, okay? And in that case, I make a, you know, secular part would be just people who are married, who are not priests, who are not nuns. And then there is the religious part. And in that case, we have priests and nuns. And there, for example, if we take a look at their side, I mean, the religious side of the Catholic Church, generally, I mean, if I think about it, you know, there is a set of prayers, for example, you know, like they have to read Psalms and, you know, other parts of the Bible, like early morning. And then if, you know, the real strict one, the real strict system would be, you know, at the early morning, then the third, which would be 9 a.m., and then the 6th at noon, and then the 9th, so at 3 p.m., and then in the evening, and then before going to bed. So they have a lot of, you know,
I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise in a way, but it's just the average person doesn't practice. Because I know I had Jewish friends at university. They would say they pray 3 times a day. It's not a surprise because Islam is not that different to Judaism. So I say that it's a big deal in some ways, like for most people to see, but in reality, the original teachings are very much like Islam.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, and in that case also, you know, in the case of Christianity, if we think about this, you know, like prayers and also the mass, for example, I mean, generally would be just once per day, normally in churches, you know, during, you know, outside, you know, apart from Sundays, it is just one mass per day. On Sunday might be 3 sessions, for example. So if we take a look at how they live the lifestyle, of course, one would say, oh, they are devoted, right? They're devoted religious people. They are, you know, devoted priests, devoted nuns. But at the same time, if there is a Muslim praying 5 times a day, then it is like, okay, this is extreme. No, I mean, it cannot be like that. It cannot be kind of a double standard in that sense. But, you know, 5 times a day it's absolutely fine. But of course, as I'm saying, it might be a shock for someone who's not a Muslim, right? And with time, okay, even if you pray all the 5 prayers, that's fine. But, you know, they need to get used to it, especially because, you know, if you do that, I mean, if you say, okay, no, I just have to do it as it is, that's it, wherever I am, you know, in that case, you might also cause some trouble in your relationship with your parents, which can also be counterproductive for you in that sense. So that's also where the middle way comes in, right? Yeah. So that, yes, you do what you're supposed to do, and at the same time, you know, it becomes easier also for other people around you to understand. This is something that it is a very important principle, you know, making sure that also the others, you know, do not feel uncomfortable because of you, because there is a context for everything, right? There is a context for everything. It would be, you know, the idea is that, you know, it's not because it's prayer, then it's fine in every possible context. Imagine, you know, me and we all of us three, we are teachers. Imagine if all of us.
Are you a teacher? Are you?
I didn't know you're a teacher.
Okay, I'm a teacher.
So
okay, we're
fellas.
teachers.
Okay. We are all of us too. Imagine if all of a sudden, you know, it's prayer time, and you know, since just because it's prayer time during class, we start praying. Would it be appropriate?
No.
Exactly. So there is a context for everything. Of course, it would be shocking for the students first of all. So it's very, you know, it's very strange doing something that, you know, and it's prayer, right? But it's not always, you know, like appropriate, because there is a context for it, right? And
So
that's
I've got
also
a
where it comes
great
in.
question from Alika. Let me see if I can press the right button. Okay, so can you teach me Islam? Fantastic question. And especially since, I mean, Mirko, do you do Islamic classes, or are you a teacher of Islam, Mirko?
No. I teach
No, what
Islamic for foreigners. It's a
Okay,
totally
sorry, I
different.
misunderstood. We were having a. What is it that you teach again?
Icelandic for foreigners and also
Oh,
linguistics.
okay.
So
I
it's a
don't know how I
totally different
misunderstood
thing.
that from an
Yeah.
earlier conversation. Anyway,
But
sorry, I
it
was
starts with
putting
the
pressure on
same.
you.
It starts with the same part of the word Islam, and the
Iceland.
Island also in Icelandic it will be the same.
Maybe that's what I misheard.
You
Okay,
see?
fine. Okay, accents Okay, anyway, so can you teach me Islam? Where do we begin? So let's give Amir a go, since he's been, you know, give him a chance to say something. Whatever comes to your mind, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim sort of thing. I know it's a big question, you know. So go on.
All right. Well, we cannot really teach Islam, but we can we can try to by like following the teaching of Islam. We can provide uh, a way of teaching to other people. And if I can relate to what Mirko was saying, and taking the examples of prayer, it's very important. This aspect you mentioned is very important. Is not that if you like, you know, there's not just, we don't just have 5 daily prayers. There is also the Sunnah. There is Tahajjud. There are many other things that you can add on if you want to improve your level of spirituality. But that doesn't come like with a flip of a finger or overnight. It's a process. And as teachers, you may know that you should scaffold like whatever you're teaching to your students or your pupils, and the same goes with any other thing. You just take it step by step. So and the same goes with prayers. I remember once when I was like like recently converted, and a friend of mine came over to visit in Denmark, and he's a Christian, and so we were gathering at a friend of our one of our friends who was also an Ahmadi, and then I said, "Oh, it's time for prayers. Should we pray?" And the answer was, we shouldn't make feel our friend uncomfortable, because he's not used to that, you know. So that's exactly what Mirko was saying. It's very important to understand the context and where the other people are coming from, because we may have been where they were, but since we're now in a different place, like related to religion and spirituality, it's also important to understand where the others are coming from and find a middle ground in with that, and take it step by step. Also making sure that others understand what you are experiencing. So and one important thing as well is, when if prayers are not if you're not able to perform your prayers, another thing that it's important is to emphasize relationship with other people. We know too well that the rights, like two things are very important in Islam, and that the promised Messiah emphasized are the rights of God and the Creator, and the rights of the creation. So it's not just our obligations towards God or Allah, but also towards His creation. So the other people, our friends, our parents, our cousins, our neighbors. So all of this, and it all comes to what is humanity. So taking care of each
You
other.
carry on. That's going to close it.
Yes. So for Alika, I'd say that it's important at first to get an insight of what is Islam, a general understanding of what is Islam, and then start little by little to practice like the 5 daily prayers. Maybe, of course, it depends. If someone is starting from scratch, then you have to learn the prayers and memorize them, understand their meaning, because it's not just about reciting, but also understanding the meaning of what you are reciting as well. And to take it easy and slowly, and enjoy the process. And if we may help, and you have questions, we're welcome to answer that.
Sure. And what I'm going to do to help Mirko as well is I'm going to show this follow-up question, like I'm a Christian. So it's good to know where Alika is coming from to give an answer, and how do you bridge the two. So it's not so. If Mirko, you could put the two questions together. Can you teach me Islam? Obviously, that's a very big question, and then you got I'm a Christian. All this. So you get a picture. Any thoughts, Mirko?
I have the feeling, you know, that the user Alika, you know, probably had kind of like more question about the concept, you know, more a conceptual question rather than so in relation to beliefs rather than the practices for the moment. I don't know if I'm mistaken or not, but you know, there is perhaps the misconception that Islam is kind of like Islam and Christianity are basically, you know, separate from each other. One, you know, they're kind of like mutually exclusive, but actually, Islam basically encompasses also, you know, Christianity in the sense that Islam recognizes Jesus and Islam as a prophet, right? So in that sense, we also take into account his message because we believe in all the prophets that have been sent, right? So one of course difference in that sense is that Islam doesn't get to the point of believing that Jesus of Islam is the Son of God. This is not a step that we take because we believe that God is one and only one. So we don't believe in the concept of Trinity in that sense, but we simply believe that Jesus of Islam is one of his prophets. So in that sense, you know, that's why I'm saying, I mean, like there are of course differences, but it's important to understand that, you know, Islam is basically the final message that has been sent for humanity, because we conceive, you know, like Jesus as, you know, a Messiah who was sent to the Jews with which purpose? With the purpose of, you know, reviving the wisdom of the Torah. And here there is, again, the role of the promised Messiah Islam into place, because basically there is kind of like a correspondence between these two figures, Jesus on one hand and the promised Messiah on the other, in the sense that we believe that the Torah, so...
And I'll just interject a little bit. Let's say, since we're talking to a Christian, we can say, instead of promised Messiah, we can say maybe the second coming of Jesus. I just thought, maybe, because it's quite a loaded term, isn't it? It means a lot of different things to different groups of people. Anyway, just a thought. But anyway, Karen.
Yeah, I mean, this is also mentioned in the Bible as well. So there is also for Christians themselves, there is the idea of the second coming of Jesus, but we consider it as two different figures with the same role. So exactly as Jesus was supposed to revive the wisdom of the Torah, so the law of Moses, at the same time, the promised Messiah was supposed to revive the wisdom of the Quranic law, right? So it's basically the kind of the same function. So in that sense, you know, the law of Moses was specific for one nation only, and in that case, also Jesus. I mean, the message of Jesus, in the sense, would be for one nation only, which is the nation of Israel, so the Jews, right? But we believe that Islam is instead for the entire humanity, because it's the last message that was supposed to be revealed, right? So in that sense, I mean, you know, talking about this bridge, I would say, you know, the bridge is basically, you know, this idea that Islam encompasses, you know, is a religion for whole humanity, which also encompasses what Jesus and Islam has said.
Okay, thank you. And then we've got even a third question. So first, we really appreciate Alika. Thank you for taking part. This is exactly what we wanted. And the more questions you give, the more we understand about where you're coming from and what's important to you. So I want to kind of try to combine all three. Like, can you teach me Islam? The number one is believe in God. In fact, the reason why I kind of mentioned that is the Quran itself says, when you talk to Christians, it says, come to a word common between us, which is believe in one God. That's the first thing that Islam says. If you're talking to Christians, realize that that's what we both believe. Actually, if deep down in Christianity you're supposed to believe that there's one God, but this idea of Trinity came from somewhere. We can talk about it if you want, but at the end of the day, this is what Jesus taught, this is what Moses taught, this is a central teaching of Christianity, even though there's this idea of Trinity. So that also leads into the bridge between Christianity and Islam. As Mirko was saying, the bridge isn't really, there isn't a big gap in reality between Christianity and Islam, especially if you go to the Middle East. You cannot really tell the difference between a lot of Christians and Muslims. They have the same names and they come from the same source. You know, Jesus was from the Middle East, we know that, and you should know that Jesus is mentioned in the Quran so many times as a great prophet of God. His mother has a chapter named after her. So you shouldn't think that there's a big gap, or even if there's, you shouldn't even think that there's some sort of hate between the two. Absolutely. In fact, it's the opposite. You actually can be, you are a martyr if you protect a church. That's mentioned in the Quran. If you die protecting a church, you are a martyr. In fact, if you die protecting a synagogue or any other place of worship, you are a martyr. So, and there's a special, especially for Christians, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made a document to say, from now, from his time till future, there's a special document protecting all Christians forever. And it's a beautiful document. Maybe we can read it out at some point. I mean, it says never harm a monk, never harm Christians, never. There's a very long document clarifying that we should protect Christians. So that there should be no idea that there is a big gap. Islam is just a continuation of a teaching that was promised in the Bible itself. So in the Bible, it said, there has been a teaching given to, I get it mixed up between Ishmael and Ishaq. Okay, so was Ishaq the father of the Arab side of things? Can you remind me? I get it mixed.
I think it's
yeah.
Ishaq, yes.
And Ishmael is the Judaic side of things.
Yeah,
I think
I might be wrong, but I think
somebody correct me. I get the two names mixed up. But basically, in the Bible, rather than getting mixed up, we can read up. But the idea is that it was prophesied that there would be a line of teaching for the Judaic side, or the how do you say it, the family tree from Abraham, and that was the Judaic teaching for a while, and that was to end. And in the Bible, it said it would now be passed on to this other brother of, or other son of Abraham, and that was basically the Islamic teaching. So it should be no surprise. Now you've got loads of questions coming up from Aleka, so I'm going to try to keep up with it. I will just brief, let's give really short answers, I think. So I'm going to give a quick short answer about, I'm not an expert in the Bible, but when I hear Galatians, I'm thinking St. Paul. Okay. And so in Galatians, you read that any angel that preaches another gospel is accursed by God. Okay, I understand. So remember, Jesus only taught Judaism and the Old Testament, and whatever he said was based on that. So the Gospels were just teachings based on top of the Judaic law. It was nothing new. He said himself, I am not come to even give an iota, the smallest difference to the Judaic law. Okay, but the problem with St. Paul, as you know him, the person who wrote Galatians and all these other letters, he said the exact opposite. So I can't really trust anything he said, and I would be careful about that. Could everybody, each of you, give a short reply if you know anything about this? So
yes, yeah, and I'm, in my case, I'm very interested, about this term here, like gospel. What is really, this term gospel? Because, like, the gospels that we consider canonical, okay, that are considered canonical in Christianity, they are basically, you know, chronicles, okay, with also messages. Yes, something that Jesus said, but they were basically collected. And what we have is actually a translation from in Greek from the Aramaic, basically. So in that sense, you know, unfortunately, when something is translated, there are, you know, different information basically that might be lost with meaning. And, you know, when I think about the canonical gospels, I have the idea, okay, is the gospel in that sense the message of Jesus? Because in that sense, you know, the gospels that we know are basically, you know, information that has been collected and, you know, just put it as a text basically and encoded in a text. But at the same time, it's not just specifically, you know, as if it were just revelation, the message of Jesus, because at the end of the day, there is the idea that, you know, the Gospels are inspired, you know, by God and not necessarily revelation. So it's kind of a different concept in that sense. Now, also regarding, you know, Paul's letters, you know, there is also another concept. I mean, Paul's letters are not revelation either. So in that sense, you know, even if we have it, you know, even if Paul talks about this, it is anyway problematic because it's not the gospel itself. So we cannot take for granted, even as a Christian, I couldn't take, you know, if I put myself in the shoes of a Christian, that's a different thing if we take a look at Paul's letters. So in that sense, it is, I feel kind of problematic, you know, taking for granted also Paul's words as if they were exactly like a gospel.
Okay, we've got loads of questions to get through. Amir, have you got any thoughts about Galatians and this new gospel being taught?
Well, I don't have a lot of knowledge about Galatians, but I fully agree with Mirko that the message of the gospel is are records and narratives written by the apostles of Jesus and chronicles as well, and that also some certain meanings can be misunderstood in translation. That's certainly true. But one thing that I could add is that in Islam, for example, if I can add up also to the previous question, we don't just have the 5 pillars of Islam. We also have the 6 articles of faith, and among these is believing in the books revealed by God. So the messages that came before and the messengers as well. So we don't just believe in the Prophet Muhammad or the promised Messiah for us that have accepted it, but we believe in Jesus, we believe in Moses, in Joseph, in Jonah. We also, as Ahmadis, believe in other prophets which are not mentioned in the Holy Scriptures. As we know, the Holy Quran says that messengers have been sent to people of different languages. So there's certainly other people that received also messages and revelation to guide and reform their people. And to wrap up, I'd say that in this, Islam has come as a final religion to unify humanity, as a universal religion to unify humanity. But that doesn't mean that it denies what has come before or that it goes against what has come before. In fact, there is no compulsion in religion, and there's also a verse as well that says, "I have my faith and you have your own." And if I can add one last thing, when you mentioned I don't know if it was the Constitution or that it was written by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallam, but also the first battle that was fought by the Muslims in self-defense was a battle that was fought to defend freedom of religion. It wasn't just for Muslims; it was for Christians and Jews and other faiths. So it wouldn't have been for this battle, there wouldn't have been any freedom of religion as such in the region of the Arabian Peninsula. And I don't know about the present, but it's we certainly strive for freedom of faith and religion as Muslims. This is very important to emphasize.
So what I'm going to do, because we have, oops, sorry. Okay, I'm going to stay away from my microphone a little bit. I will just say there are a lot of questions, and I and Mirko and whoever wants, right? We can also answer it underneath the live You know, like after the live stream is finished, there will be the normal comments, and we can all have a go at answering these questions. Or because I don't want to keep you guys here for the more time than we agreed on, you know. So really quickly, does it, and we'll do one question each just so we can try to get through as many as possible, because we don't know if Alika will ever come back, and we want to do best we can in front of God, that we tried our best, you know. So very quickly, does anybody want to have a go at this one? You Muslims are the best of people raised up for the mankind. This is from the Quran. Means that people for the means the best of peoples for the people, as you bring them with chains and around their necks. So it doesn't quite sound right to me. There's a hadith apparently from Sahih Muslim. Sorry,
I'm
Bukhari.
trying to get whether all the thing is a quote or.
Yeah, so some of it is like you're raised for the best. You're the best of people for mankind. This is part of the Quran, but also it claims that there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad who explained this, meaning that we have to. It sounds like enforce this idea, which sounds very odd to me. But does anybody want to give a 1 minute answer to this? I think the answer has already been given by Amir in one way, to be honest, but no. I mean, what I heard from Amir was that we have freedom of religion. There's no idea of enforcing religion on anybody else. In fact, we protect other people with our other people's faiths with our lives. So, I think one thing that would be really simple is realize that anything that is a saying of Prophet Muhammad, it contradicts the Quran, absolutely is out the window. Forget it. That's the simple answer.
That's a mantra.
I think we're trying to give a short answer. I'm sorry if I took that one. But
okay.
I think everybody's nodding, so we agree with that simple one.
You know.
Okay. Mirko,
same question. I mean, it's in relation to what was said.
Okay, cool.
That
so
goes back to the
one.
previous question. Yes.
Cool. And this one is, "Oh, ye prophet." I don't understand this one.
I don't know who's Prophet Bolus.
Does anybody know who Prophet Bolus is?
No.
No? Okay, fine. Maybe we could search it up for you, Alika. Go on. Does it? Any thoughts? No? Okay, fine.
Paul, I mean, we don't consider Paul a prophet.
So Bolus is Paul?
I think I think Alika is relating, Bolus to Paul.
Oh yeah, maybe Paulus, because in Arabic it's Paulus. Yes,
exactly.
You're right. Yeah.
Alika, are you an Arab Christian by any chance?
Because I'm trying to.
It'd be interesting to see. But anyway, maybe she'll say that later. You have testimonies and the inspired word of God through the Holy Spirit. I think maybe that's part of another comment.
Probably what we said. Probably to what we said. Yeah, what I said in relation to Gospels, that they are inspired by God, and they're not exactly revelation. They're considered like this in Christianity.
Say, O prophet, O people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel, and what that has been revealed to you from your Lord. Any thoughts on that? Anybody? I'm trying not to jump in too much.
Well, considering, in this case, if you think about it, yes, I mean, there is, a nation in that case of Jews, for example, that still, had the Torah. So if that is a revelation, okay, they can definitely, follow it. It's absolutely fine. But, in that sense, if you think about it, yes, okay, the Torah is a revelation, and I can also follow that. The thing is, though, okay, if another message has been sent, and it's for the entire humanity, and in a different time in which society has changed, then okay, perhaps the best option for me would be choosing the religion or the system of values that has been perfected, basically. So I would choose, you know, the last message that has been sent, because it's for the entire humanity and not necessarily, you know, for one nation. So that message, I mean, the Torah is anyway, you know, valid also for the nation of Jews. I mean, in the Quran itself, it is said that, you know, it is absolutely fine if someone follows the Torah. There are virtuous people who follow the Torah. There are virtuous people who follow the so-called gospel, not intended as chronicles, but anyway as the direct message of Jesus in order to revive the wisdom of the Torah, right? So in that sense, that's absolutely fine, right? To follow the message. But of course, you know, personally, I would prefer, you know, a final, a complete message for the entire humanity, right? Because in, you know, also this interesting concept that is discussed in the Quran, which is the abrogation, right? The concept of abrogation. So the concept of abrogation was simply, you know, between two different revelations, one of the past and one of the future. You know, the new revelation comes in order to have a, you know, another sign, let's say, of the same value, or even better. Of course, because society evolves, so rules for the entire humanity or for a specific nation, let's say, most of the time, you know, society is more sophisticated. So in that sense, it is important to send a clear message for sophisticated societies. Okay, there is a certain point where basically society has reached basically a peak where, you know, the message can continue and can be just final because the society has.
And by the way, I'm just going to paste the complete translation, because it wasn't the what you see on the screen wasn't the complete translation from Alika.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if you can fit the whole thing in. So basically, the thing that was missing is that you should follow the Torah and the Gospel, but you should also follow what has now been sent to you. Yeah, so which means don't ignore the current teaching of the Quran. So it shouldn't be considered that like you should avoid learning on the Quran. But I don't think that's
Especially
different to
because
what you're
it's,
saying, really.
you know, the sense is that basically, you know, like, since it's a perfected message because the society has changed, it has become more sophisticated. At that point, the best option is, you know, choosing the message that encompasses all the previous ones. That's basically the idea.
I would like to add a little thing, because
Yes.
I'm reading on the side. I can see Alika's question, so I try to put them all together.
Yeah, could you summarize, because we've only got 2 minutes, and you've read more than
I can see a pattern into that, so I can try to answer. That also the message of Islam, as Mirko said, there's an update in the message. So every people received, as I also said, received a messenger that provided a message to rectify their people on a period where the people were led astray, so where they completely immersed into immorality and other things. So for every people came a messenger. The coming of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was for the whole of mankind, and the message of Islam is a universal message for all the times. So it wasn't just 1400 years ago, but it's also for the next 1,000 years eventually, if you will. So that's the purpose of why was Muhammad sent to the people. And it wasn't just sent to the illiterate people of Arabia, it was sent to all of mankind. And if you look at the second chapter of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, it says that this is a book for the people who believe in the unseen, and for those who do good deeds and are righteous. So it's not a book just for the illiterate or just for the Arabs. It's for the whole of mankind. And in fact, nowadays you find in the whole world there are like almost 2 billion Muslims all over the world. So it's a message that traveled all over the world and reached the people. So yeah, that was my very short answer to your question, Alika, and I hope it was clear. And other than that, I would suggest you to look for commonalities between Christianity and Islam, and not to focus too much on the differences instead. That's my humble advice as well.
Cool. I mean, if you want to say, sorry, we'll have to fix that for next
It
time.
always happens.
Mirko, you say last few words. I'm going to stay away from my microphone.
No, it's fine.
just
you just have to stay like this.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, because now I'm seeing, like.
Should I hide the stuff so you can't? I don't know. Can you see those? There's quite a few messages on the side.
Yes.
You could just summarize in 1 minute or something, because I don't want to keep you guys any longer. But 1 minute. What are your words, Mirko? Amir said something, you say something, and then we'll be done.
in relation to the comments, or just
just generally, because there's quite a few comments. Actually, you know what, it's up to you. Do you want to round up the thing? Because I think Amir tried to summarize all these questions. Would you like to say any last words for the show? Actually, that would be nice, I think. And we'll answer these other questions if you want in your time. You can watch the comments and answer in the comments below the recorded video. Anyway, go for it. Mirko.
Well, considering the fact that the topic was more in relation to the challenges of converts, well, in that case, if you consider also these questions, of course, that's where knowledge kicks in. Because of course, even in that sense, it is also good to see, that there is a response from users like Alika, so that we can also reflect upon like what we believe and try to explain it, and and have a dialogue in relation to that. And this is also, this is also helpful for converts. Perhaps, one has to also take time in order to learn at least, the fundamental concepts here and there. And in that sense, it is also, it becomes important also for someone like us, for example, to reflect upon certain issues and, having a dialogue about these things, because really they help us into progressing in knowledge as well.
Okay, thank you, Jazakallah. That means God bless you. Thank you, Alika, for taking part and making this show very interesting. Even more interesting than having my friends as well, Amir and Mirko, join me. I really appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully this show has made a difference to somebody's life. Mirko, Amir, just hang on. I mean, I'm going to end the stream, but we'll just chat a little bit, like say how it went, and then good. Otherwise, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you.
Peace be upon you all.